Welcome to part 2 of our discussion on Blade Runner, the 1982 sci-fi classic. Blade Runner has inspired many modern films in terms of theme, visuals, and complexity. But what went into creating this incredible spectacle? Well, let's dive in together. I'm Max, and this is Letters from the Editor. Last week, we covered Blade Runner's rough start to production. Yet, with the many trials they faced, they still began creating some of the most iconic visuals in cinema history. But the troubles would continue to pile on, culminating in the removal of Ridley Scott and Michael Deeley from the film. When Michael Deeley was securing funding for the film, he didn't have many options. Their funding came from Tandem Productions, a joint venture made up of two well-known producers of the time. And the agreement was that if the production went over budget or out of control, Tandem Productions had the right to take over the project and finish it how they saw fit. Well, that's exactly what happened. Blade Runner became a much larger project than the producers anticipated, and in Ridley Scott's dedication to getting the film finished, they went largely over budget. But not for lack of trying. You see, the main reason that they went over budget was because they had to completely reshoot everything from the first 2 weeks of production. The first scene shot in the film was Tyrell's office, and the first time they shot it, the scene was much too dark and borderline unintelligible. So they reshot it with the evening sunlight shining through as you see in the final film. Sean Young's performance was also not the best, so that gave her an opportunity to get in the groove of filming and get it right. Now, all this meant that by the time that they were 4 weeks into the film, they were vastly over budget and behind schedule. This created instant tension on set. The financiers would begin breathing down Ridley's neck, demanding why he needed to add so much detail to every scene. To them, all the added elements of realism were unnecessary. But as we know, this is how Ridley Scott operates. He fills the screen with layers of elements, and he wants every scene to feel like it's a real place. Eventually, after 4 months of principal photography, the film was shot. All that was left were the visual effects and editing. But not long after this, Ridley Scott and Michael Deeley got a letter stating that they had been kicked off the picture. Tandem Productions had taken over Blade Runner. But, like any artist committed to his craft, Scott and Deeley didn't let a piece of paper take them away from the film. They promptly set down the paper and got back to work. They had a movie to finish. Now that the movie had been filmed, it was time to assemble all the pieces they had shot into the first cut of the film. But doing this posed a problem for Ridley. You see, once he saw the whole thing put together, he was worried audiences wouldn't understand it. So now it was his job to make sure that they did. So Ridley and the editor worked hard to cut together a vision of the film that they liked. But upon showing the film to the investors, they were met with bad news. They hated it. None of it made sense to them. Now, let me take a quick tangent and talk about some of the versions you may have encountered of this film. The version of the film that everyone saw on release in 1982 was much different than the version you will find streaming or on Blu-ray today. The original theatrical cut had a voiceover, or VO, of Harrison Ford. In this VO, he guided the viewer to his inner thoughts and set up the story, sort of like an old detective film from the 40s.
It didn't help me any. Neither did the flake from the bathtub. Nothing helped. Not even booze. I was restless and hungry. I needed the streets and I needed food. Pretty weird. Okay. Pretty weird.
The problem was that this was not at all Ridley's vision. The VO was demanded by the investors to help the viewer understand the story of the film. But Ridley despised this because he had already worked so hard on the visuals so that you wouldn't need VO. If you have seen this version of the film, you may remember the VO being very dull and monotone. And this was actually due to Harrison Ford not finding the VO necessary either.
Read 11, section 1, take 4.
She told me she loved me too.
No. Wrong. She told me that. It's gonna work great. Really. This method is perfect. Let's go again.
The ending to the film was also different. This goes all the way back to when Hampton Fancher was writing the initial script. The investors wanted that happy ending. In the theatrical release, the movie ends with Deckard and Rachel driving off into the sunset, finally able to escape the city together. But this did not fit the tone of the rest of the film at all. In this version of the film, Scott put together his vision. He took out the horrible VO, he reinserted the unicorn scenes, we'll discuss that later, and he cut out the happy ending. Yet, even though it was a director's cut, Scott was not fully present for this version. He was only able to give notes, and the actual editing was conducted by Warner Brothers. Alright, this is the definitive version of the film. Scott had complete control over this version, and is considered the true Blade Runner. The changes are minor, but with newer technology, Scott was able to adjust the colors of the film to match his vision, as well as adjust some of the visuals. Apparently, at the first screening for the cast and crew, the film was met with deafening silence. Some praised its visual spectacle and the performance of the actors, but many didn't understand what had happened. The story didn't make much sense to them. Who was the hero? How are they supposed to feel? The film needed time to marinate. Many didn't understand it when it was released, and many might not understand it today. But Blade Runner, at its heart, is a philosophical film. This is one of the main themes that was taken from the book. The movie makes us think about what makes us human by showing how replicants can have emotions and memories just like us. Take Rachel, for example. When she finds out she's a replicant, her reaction is very human, showing confusion and sadness over memories that aren't really hers.
Remember the spider that lived in a bush outside your window? Orange body, green legs. Watched her build a web all summer. Then one day there's a big egg in it. The egg hatched.
The egg hatched,
And
100 baby spiders came out. And they ate her.
implants. Those aren't your memories. They're somebody else's. They're Tyrell's nieces.
The film also looks at freedom and choice through the replicants' fight to control their own lives. Even though they were made to serve humans, they fight back, wanting to decide their own futures. This brings up big questions about freedom and how we should treat beings that can think and feel. Take the final scene with Batty and Deckard. Deckard is hanging off a building, fighting for his life, while Batty towers above him. It would be so easy for the replicant to stomp his foot down, sealing Deckard's fate. But in a final act, a very human final act, Batty grabs Deckard at the last moment, saving his life. Why would he do this? He just spent the last 20 minutes playing cat and mouse with him. Well, I think this scene shows the true humanity of Batty. It wasn't thought out, it wasn't planned, he just reached out and saved him. It was a human reaction. Roy's struggle highlights a basic human wish to avoid death. In what is probably the most iconic scene of the film, Roy Batty delivers his famous monologue. He desperately wishes that all the things he has seen and experienced would not disappear, like tears in rain. The unicorn dream sequence holds significant weight, subtly altering the narrative and deepening the film's exploration of identity and reality. This brief scene where Deckard dreams of a unicorn galloping through a forest was introduced in the director's cut and carries profound implications. It suggests that Deckard's memories might be implanted, akin to those of the replicants he hunts. This aligns him more closely with the beings he is supposed to distinguish from humans, blurring the lines between the hunter and the hunted. It also adds more weight to Rachel questioning if Deckard had ever taken the Voight-Kampff test himself. And the origami unicorn left by Gaff at the end of the film serves as a cryptic nod to this dream, implying that Gaff might know about Deckard's private thoughts, further hinting that Deckard's memories, and by extension his identity, might not be his own. This single mystical symbol enriches the narrative, opening up interpretations of Deckard's true nature and questioning the reliability of what we perceive as real or fabricated. So the question remains, is Deckard a replicant? Does it matter? Well, that's for you to decide. It's clear that Blade Runner has left an indelible mark on the landscape of science fiction and paved the way for many future works. From its tumultuous production history to its profound thematic explorations, the film has transcended its initial mixed reception to become a cornerstone of cinematic history. Its exploration of identity, humanity, and the ethics of artificial intelligence has sparked decades of debate and analysis, making it a film that challenges and captivates. Blade Runner is not just a film, it is a multifaceted inquiry into technology, existence, and the future. It challenges viewers to reconsider the boundaries of human experience and the implications of our technological ambitions. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on the movie. If you want to support the channel, consider joining my Patreon. This has been Letters from the Editor. Thank you for watching. Okay, also, Deckard is totally a replicant. I mean, come on, isn't it obvious?